The darkest strategy Machiavelli ever revealed about making a woman think about you has nothing to do with flowers, compliments, or grand confessions. It is about silent influence. This is not romance, this is precision. You do not win through constant presence, but through controlled absence. Not through affection, but through mystery. When you become the question she cannot answer, her mind becomes the cage, and you become the thought that refuses to leave. You do not occupy a woman's mind by being overly kind, predictable, or fully transparent. The human mind does not obsess over what it clearly understands. It obsesses over what creates tension, over what escapes clarity, over what feels close to being understood, yet never completely revealed. This strategy works because it does not operate on the surface. It moves underneath awareness, in the psychological shadows where influence happens quietly. Everything begins with presence, but not obvious presence. Most men present themselves like open books, desperate to be read, accepted, admired. You do the opposite. You present yourself like a book with no title, no description, no clear cover. Something that reveals little, yet suggests depth. And that silent promise becomes the first hook inside her mind. Because the human brain cannot tolerate unanswered questions. It must fill the gaps. You become an enigma. And an enigma does not need to be solved immediately. It only needs to become impossible to ignore. The shift begins when you break predictability. You appear with intention, never excess. A short sentence, a glance that lingers half a second too long, a comment that feels layered yet explains nothing. And then, you step back. Absence is where fascination grows. In the silence, she begins to imagine, to interpret, to project. She tries to understand what feels different about you, and the more she tries, the deeper she moves into her own emotional landscape, where you now exist. Machiavelli understood this clearly. Whoever controls interpretation controls perception. By refusing to over-explain yourself, you allow her to create explanations. And those explanations often reveal more about her hidden desires than about you. The core principle is simple. You do not need to be extraordinary. You only need to be difficult to fully read. Her mind will work for you, replaying moments, analyzing words, filling the silence you left intentionally. What she feels may not even be love, it may not be desire, it may be tension. And tension is powerful because it demands resolution. But you never give full resolution. You offer fragments, a compliment wrapped in ambiguity, a moment of interest that feels intentional rather than impulsive, a strong presence that disappears before it becomes comfortable. You become the imbalance she wants to correct, and while she tries to restore balance, she thinks about you. And while she thinks, attachment quietly forms. The dynamic shifts when you master the rhythm, closeness followed by distance. Most people do this emotionally and reactively. You do it deliberately. Closeness opens doors. Distance makes her wonder why they closed. When something feels briefly gained and then withdrawn, its value increases. When you disappear after creating connection, she begins to miss you before she fully understands why. Absence becomes weight. The subtle power lies in making her feel emotionally independent while you quietly influence the tempo of interaction. You respond when unexpected. You become silent when anticipation is high. Each broken expectation resets her focus. She begins to notice patterns, timing, tone, subtle shifts, and focus is the foundation of attachment. The common mistake is trying to create desire through constant availability, but desire grows in space. When you appear selectively and retreat intentionally, she builds a version of you in her imagination, amplified, idealized, incomplete. And imagination is stronger than reality. She no longer compares you to other men. She compares you to the story her mind created. And imagination always wins against the ordinary. The alternation between warmth and distance activates two forces, the fear of losing you and the hope of gaining you. Fear sharpens attention, hope sustains investment. You offer small signals of possibility, a look, a subtle compliment, a thoughtful pause. Then you withdraw again. Not dramatically, just enough. Machiavelli once wrote that controlling fear grants power, but controlling hope sustains it quietly. You offer hope in measured amounts, then you step back into silence. The more she tries to appear unaffected, the more she must think about you to maintain that mask. Effort to resist is still attention, and attention is involvement. The brilliance of this strategy lies in restraint. You never need dramatic declarations, you never need to overstate emotion. You simply maintain emotional asymmetry, where she invests more interpretation than you provide explanation. Her mind does not fall in love with you directly, it becomes absorbed in its own reactions to you. You deepen the effect through contradiction. One day, thoughtful and open. The next, composed and distant. Not chaotic, intentional. The human mind struggles with paradox. It seeks coherence. When coherence cannot be found, it keeps searching. Searching becomes attachment. Then comes the mirror effect. You make subtle observations about her, statements that feel personal yet remain broad enough to resonate deeply. You feel more than you show. You try to stay in control, but you fear losing it. There's more intensity in you than people notice. These phrases feel intimate. She believes you see layers others miss. Feeling seen creates connection. But you remain slightly out of reach. No full closure, no complete access. Almost understanding you becomes the story that never ends. And stories without endings stay alive in the mind. Then you add one final layer. The impression that she affects you. A pause before responding. A moment of focus. A sentence that suggests you remembered something she said. Now she feels influence, and people attach to what they believe they can move. She begins to feel she is slowly unlocking you, that she is reaching territory others have not. But the structure never fully opens. There is always one layer more. Desire becomes a labyrinth. At its deepest level, this is not about constant action. It is about impact, not quantity, intensity. A few meaningful moments can echo louder than constant noise. She begins to relate more to the mental image she created of you than to your physical presence. And in that gap between imagination and reality, attachment grows. She unconsciously compares others to the emotional standard you set. And that standard feels different because you do not overextend. You do not overshare. You leave space. Others explain themselves fully. You leave questions. Others seek approval. You remain centered. Others chase. You choose your timing. When she begins adjusting herself before speaking to you, rehearsing, refining, preparing, emotional neutrality has already shifted. You have become the reference point, and that is the strategy. Not conquest, not pressure, not force. Presence, absence, interpretation. You do not fight for attention, you shape it. And once the mind begins circling a mystery, it rarely stops on its own. This is the moment you introduce the most refined and dangerous weapon of all, indirect emotional emphasis. You do not openly show interest in her. You demonstrate selectivity. You never move like a man who wants any woman. You move like a man who seeks something rare, something very few possess. You release quiet statements into the air. Most people don't catch my attention. It's rare for me to truly connect. I don't waste time on people without depth. Immediately, she tries to place herself in that rare category. Human beings crave being the exception, yet they fear being ordinary. And you awaken both impulses at once, ambition and insecurity. While she wonders whether she qualifies, she thinks about you constantly. The desire for validation from someone selective is far stronger than attraction to someone available. Then you introduce the most merciless element, emotional ambiguity. You never clearly define what role she plays in your life. One day, it feels like she is moving closer. The next, it feels like she lost ground entirely. In one conversation, you are warm, present, almost intimate. In the next, you are neutral, distant, unreadable, as if nothing ever shifted. This uncertainty creates a subtle but continuous tension. She remains emotionally alert, adjusting, anticipating, trying to decode. Two instincts awaken simultaneously. The instinct to win you, the instinct to avoid losing you. From this combination, silent fixation is born. Ambiguity creates an emotional gap she tries to fill with memory. She replays conversations, she analyzes tone, she reinterprets your words, she imagines what you meant. She rebuilds scenes inside her mind. And here is the quiet truth. By doing this, she relives you repeatedly. You become present not because you are there, but because she reconstructs you internally. When someone begins recreating you in their imagination, effort becomes unnecessary. They maintain the connection themselves. This is where the true shift occurs, the displacement of the emotional axis. Before, you appeared and disappeared. Now, you appear rarely but occupy enormous mental space. You reduce your external investment. Her internal investment increases. The less you do, the more she thinks. The more she thinks, the less she notices how little you actually do. This imbalance creates a one-sided bond disguised as mutual connection. Yet the intensity was born inside her, not between you. The human mind confuses internal intensity with shared reality. That is the flaw this strategy leverages. And at this stage, she can no longer simply forget you, even if she tries. Because it is no longer about attraction, it is about identity. You stirred something deeper inside her: insecurities, hopes, pride, fear, ambition. When someone awakens dormant layers of your identity, you do not forget them. You attempt to understand them. And in trying to understand, you remain engaged. The core remains simple. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be mentally persistent. Now her mind no longer processes you neutrally. Every memory, every mood, every stimulus passes through the filter of you. And here the strategy deepens. You begin shaping not only what she feels, but how she interprets her own behavior. The subtle secret of this phase is making her believe she acts freely while she is reacting to tensions you quietly introduced. Nothing binds tighter than the illusion of choice. So you plant small emotional cues. You mention you admire calm communicators. You hint that independence attracts you. You pause approvingly when she shows confidence. You grow silent when she overshares. Slowly, she adjusts. She aligns herself with what she believes you value. This is the turning point. You are no longer occupying only her thoughts. You begin influencing her behavior. She believes she is simply improving herself. She does not see the small incentives that shaped that change. The most effective influence is the one that feels spontaneous. You say, "I respect people who stand their ground." Soon, she stands firmer. You mention you admire those who don't attach quickly. She tries to appear composed while feeling deeply invested. She does not want to disappoint the version of you she created, the selective, controlled, observant version that quietly evaluates. She begins imagining your gaze even when you are not present. That internal awareness is proof the influence worked. Then you intensify contrast, not just closeness and distance. Now it becomes intensity and neutrality. At certain moments, you create emotional impact, deep, charged, almost overwhelming. Shortly after, you become composed, balanced, distant. The emotional line breaks. The mind cannot tolerate irregular patterns without explanation. And in searching for explanation, it circles back to you. Intensity leaves imprint. Neutrality creates hunger. Stable people offer comfort. Unpredictable presence creates impact. Then comes the almost romance. That undefined space where nothing is labeled, yet everything feels possible. You create moments that feel intimate, but never confirm commitment. You allow her to feel special, but never state it directly. Yes resolves, no ends. Almost stretches infinitely. And inside that stretch, attachment grows. She is not attached to what exists. She is attached to what might have existed. Imagined potential outweighs reality. You do not offer certainty. You offer possibility. Possibility mixed with uncertainty creates powerful emotional gravity. She wakes thinking about what you meant. She sleeps wondering why your tone shifted. She organizes her emotional energy around decoding you. Then you apply intermittent reinforcement. Occasionally, you treat her as unique. Briefly, intentionally. Then you withdraw again. The peak makes the absence heavier. She does not only miss you, she misses how she felt when you were present. She chases that emotional state, not you. Then imagined exclusivity forms. She believes you see something in her others do not. You never need to say it. Subtle implication is enough. When someone believes they hold a unique space in your mind, they protect that space fiercely. You have become not just a person, but an emotional concept. Concepts are harder to release than people. At this depth, the strategy evolves. You are no longer simply present or absent. You become an internal reference. She imagines your reaction before she acts. She mentally consults you when deciding. She adjusts under a gaze that exists only in her imagination. Influence has moved inward. Then comes rare, imperfect validation. You validate selectively, never fully. You don't say she is beautiful. You say her expression sometimes lingers in your mind. You don't call her interesting. You say there are moments when she reveals unexpected depth. You don't confess desire. You imply she could affect you, if she chose to. Incomplete validation creates craving for completion. You give a fragment instead of the whole. And fragments often create stronger attachment than certainty. Then you suggest emotional depth within yourself. Unresolved layers, unexplained scars, fragments of history you do not clarify. Mystery, combined with perceived vulnerability, awakens protective instinct. She imagines accessing something hidden within you, but that hidden space exists largely because she constructed it. Then you apply emotional echo. You mirror subtly. If she shares insecurity, you share a lighter version. If she opens deeply, you open slightly less. If she expresses jealousy, you introduce mild ambiguity. The echo creates perceived synchronization. She sees herself reflected in you. And when someone feels reflected, they believe connection is rare. You then introduce fragmented intimacy. Short stories, unfinished memories, moments shared without full explanation. She believes gathering these fragments will unlock your inner world, but there is no final door, only carefully spaced pieces. The incomplete holds attention. Eventually, inevitability forms. She begins to feel your presence in her life has meaning, that the connection transcends logic. Mystery, contrast, selective warmth, ambiguity, together they create a narrative. And when the mind assigns deeper meaning to an emotional bond, detachment becomes difficult. Then comes selective withdrawal at peak intensity. When she finally reveals vulnerability, when she opens emotionally, when she admits something real, you step back. Not dramatically, naturally. She expected warmth. She meets silence. That silence becomes weight, not rejection, but absence. And absence leaves stories unfinished. Unfinished stories linger. The final layer is this. You are no longer just a mystery. You become her mystery. She believes what exists between you is unique, something only she understands. And when someone believes their feeling is unique, they become attached not to the person, but to the meaning. Now the strategy reaches its most refined form. It is no longer about emotion, it is about narrative. People do not live facts, they live stories. And the story she tells herself about you has grown larger than reality. You do not force meaning, you allow her to assign it. Every gesture becomes symbolic, every absence becomes significant, every moment becomes a chapter. You stop being a man, you become a storyline. And no one abandons a story without an ending. You reinforce the internal illusion without confirming it. If she believes you are intense, you show brief intensity and retreat. If she believes you are distant, you give distance that feels deliberate. If she thinks she understands you, you change tone. If she fears losing you, you offer a small gesture of possibility. You do not create the narrative, you strengthen the narrative she created. That is the most subtle influence. Then comes inverted mirroring. She misses you. You imply, without saying, that perhaps you miss her too. She expresses longing. You respond with weighted silence. She shows high interest. You return lower intensity, but with greater depth. You give less than you receive, but she perceives it as more, because she interprets everything through her own desire. You offer 20%. She experiences 200%. Finally, emotional presence alternates with interpretative absence. She opens. You respond without closure. She asks directly. You answer indirectly. She searches. You remain composed. She believes there must be hidden intention behind every move, and so she returns to you, mentally, emotionally, night after night. Then the final illusion appears. Spiritual exclusivity. You create the feeling of meaningful coincidence. You appear when she least expects. You return when she is about to detach. You withdraw when she feels closest. It feels orchestrated, fated, significant, not supernatural, just precise timing. And once she believes something greater connects you, she stops seeing you as a choice. She begins seeing you as destiny. And destiny, even when imagined, holds tighter than desire.